citizens on our television. I am Samindrija Vardhana. Let's look at the headlines first. Any country should have a globally competitive tax system to attract the investors, says world-known emerging market investor. Paying bribes acceptable to a quarter of Sri Lankans, Transparency International Sri Lanka survey shows. News in detail. Emerging markets guru Dr. Mark Mobius is in Sri Lanka and participated in an exclusive forum hosted by Cinnamon Life this morning. Speaking to the business leaders in Colombo, he expressed generous praise for Sri Lanka and his enthusiasm at the opportunity to travel to the country at a very transformative period for the local economy. Cinnamon Life, Sri Lanka's one of the most anticipated mixed development, hosted an exclusive forum this morning in Colombo, where prominent business leaders were made privy to insights from illustrious emerging markets investor Dr. Mark Mobius. The event, titled Emerging Markets and Sri Lanka's Growth Trajectory, was well attended, being Dr. Mobius' only official speaking appointment while in the country. Dr. Mobius highlighted the immense growth potential Sri Lanka has as an economy with regards to foreign investor appeal. He also pointed out that Sri Lanka's agri-based economy has always held global interest, especially with tea as its strongest brand and commodity, and as well as its charm as a tourist destination. Dr. Mobius also made note on the country's recent attractiveness to the software and real estate sectors.
The opportunity at this juncture in the global economy is very, very positive for one very important reason, and that is interest rates. Interest rates are low and going lower. So we're seeing almost a deflationary environment, which is very, very good for Sri Lanka. The debts that the country has have to be paid off, and the fact that you can have lower rates can mean a restructuring of that debt and hopefully raising new debt to help the country grow.
Dr. Mark Mobius also said that tax system should be globally competitive to attract the international investors. Dr. Mobius also mused over how investments the world over have been significantly altered by the entry of sophisticated communication, the internet and IT.
Government procedures, bureaucracy has to be streamlined and digitized. You know, one of the great things now is that with the digitization, it's becoming much more easy. It's easier now for governments to collect taxes, to approve licenses, et cetera, and it's becoming easier for the public to access these services. So that's the number one thing. Number two is taxes. You have to make a tax environment which is globally competitive. So you have to look at Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, even India. You know, India has recently lowered the taxes. And you have to say, look, we want to be better. We want to have even a better tax environment. Now, I realize the government is faced with the debts and they faced with expenditures that they have to make. But in that context, they have to think of new ways to raise capital and to reduce government spending. And the way to do that is to start bringing state enterprises to the market. You know, the whole journey that we've been in since 1987 was a journey that best could be described as the transition from communism, socialism, dictatorship to a market economy. And probably the best example of that is China, where they maintained the one-party rule but adopted a market economy. So the degree to which you expose government enterprises to the market is a really big step in the right direction.
Caroline Jury, who won the Mrs. World 2020 crown at the World Pageant held in Las Vegas in USA, arrived in Sri Lanka this morning, and she was bestowed with a warm welcome by her relatives and many others at the airport. Caroline Jury arrived at the Bandaranaike International Airport at around 2:45 a.m. today, and she set off for Colombo in a special convoy. Caroline Jury was chosen as the winner out of 51 entrants who participated in the Mrs. World 2020 finale on the 6th of December in Las Vegas, United States. Thus, Caroline Jury managed to bring the Mrs. World crown back to the country after 35 years, and former beauty queen and current mayor of Colombo, Rosie Senanayake, was the first Sri Lankan to win the title in 1984 at the first Mrs. World contest held in Australia.
So please help the people who are representing our country. Thank you so much.
President Gotabaya Rajapaksa said that all weaknesses in the public sector in this country should be identified promptly and accurately in order to develop the country, and all should commit to build a quality public service through an attitudinal transformation. President Rajapaksa made these remarks while addressing the newly appointed state minister secretaries at the Presidential Secretariat last evening. 32 new state minister secretaries received their letter of appointments from the Secretary to the President, Dr. P.B. Jayasundara, at the President's Secretariat last evening. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who addressed the new secretaries, asked to commit themselves to build a quality public service through an attitudinal transformation. President, highlighting the importance of operating the state apparatus without fraud or corruption, told them to use modern technology to the best of its capability to maintain public service efficient and effective. President Rajapaksa also assured them more local and international training opportunities, enabling them to fulfill the aspirations of the general public. He also stressed that his policy statement had covered every sector in the country and that each ministry has a role to play in fulfilling those responsibilities. Stay tuned for more news after this. The 2019 Global Corruption Barometer report for Sri Lanka, launched by the Transparency International Sri Lanka, says a quarter of the public found it acceptable to pay a bribe to obtain or expedite certain public services. These findings were put forward at the launching ceremony of the 2019 Global Corruption Barometer report held at TISL office in Colombo yesterday.
The Global Corruption Barometer is the world's largest public opinion survey on views and experiences of corruption. As a poll of the general public, it provides an indicator as to how corruption is affecting individuals on a national level and how efforts to curb corruption are viewed on the ground. The GCB 2019 Sri Lanka report published by TISL is a summary report of a survey conducted in all 9 provinces in the first quarter of 2019 and incorporates a stratified sample of 1,300 citizens aged 18 to 80 years from urban and rural settings. Meanwhile, TISL Executive Director Asoko Besekara shared some key findings of the survey.
A quarter of people say that it is acceptable to pay a bribe to get or expedite the obtaining of services, which is quite a concern, as I'm sure we can all agree. I think it's important that we try to tackle this public indifference. And in trying to tackle this public indifference, on one side we need to ensure enforcement, but also we need to acknowledge that President Rajapaksa's manifesto has spoken about the need to fight corruption, and the fact that it's essential that those manifesto commitments are also properly resourced as well to ensure that corruption can be properly tackled in light of the findings of this public survey as well.
Speaking further, Executive Director of TISL, Asoko Besekara, stressed that when the subjects of the survey were asked as to which key state institution they trust the most, majority of the public selected the judiciary but showed a stark trust deficit towards the government and the police.
The institutions of state, looking at some of the key areas around the judiciary, government, police, the one that had the greatest deal of trust, with 73% of people saying that they have fair or a great deal of trust, was the judiciary. However, looking at the government and police, the government, there were only 47% of people that had a fair or great deal of trust, and 57% of people had a fair or great deal of trust in the police, highlighting a key trust deficit. Now, what can we do about this going ahead? On one side, Seabok has a 2-year action plan, which is very ambitious, And it's important to ensure that this awareness around the way in which citizens can access Siabok is really built and enhanced. But also, it's about the government and the police also doing more to build trust in themselves to ensure that this enormous deficit is actually addressed.
Highlighting the positive trade relations between Sri Lanka and its neighbouring countries, State Minister of International Cooperation Susi Premajanta calls upon the Chinese entrepreneurs to set up manufacturing factories in Sri Lanka so that goods can be easily exported to the countries of the region. He made these observations addressing a Chinese delegation in Colombo yesterday. A high-powered Chinese business delegation arrived in Sri Lanka seeking opportunities in trade cooperation with Sri Lankan SMEs. Facilitated by Sri Lanka's Confederation of Micro, Small and Medium Industries, the high-powered Chinese team had closer B2B and technological ties with leading Sri Lankan industrialists and SMEs by inking 2 landmark cooperation agreements with COSME yesterday. Addressing the pioneering MOU signing and B2B event between them and Sri Lanka's COSME, Chairman Zong Cheng, the leader of the 15-member Myanyang Business and Tech Delegation to Sri Lanka, stressed that it shall exchange cooperative information and intentions and also hold one-to-one meetings with SMEs leading industry representatives of Sri Lanka. Thus, a cooperation framework agreement between COSME and China Myanyang Enterprise Union for import and export and a strategic cooperation agreement between COSME and Sichuan Yang Zhuangyong Trading Company Limited were inked at this event.
We have free trade agreements with India, Pakistan and other neighboring countries. So if our Chinese entrepreneurs start their manufacturing factories in our country, in our soil, so we can export your products through our free trade agreements to our neighboring countries. So there you find a large market within South Asian region. That is one of the advantages. At the moment, in the tourism industry, Chinese are number one. So after unfortunate incident happening Easter Sunday, we have already recovered the sector. So therefore, you can pursue your travel agents and other business people to come to Sri Lanka. Now, here it's very peaceful country, and the government, especially the president, guarantee the security of the people and your business in our country. So that is what you need at the moment. So that assurance is given.
Addressing the Chinese delegation, the State Minister of International Cooperation went on to state that Sri Lanka has an abundance of skilled human resources that are beneficial for the foreign investments and at the same time highlighted the need to help local entrepreneurs with the technological expertise from advanced countries like China.
Here in Sri Lanka, we are very rich in human resources. We maintain over 94 literacy rate in our country. That is one of the highest rate in the region. And we have so many entrepreneurs, young and upcoming business people in our country who are looking for opportunities. So this is one of the opportunities you have. Once you sign agreement, we should not confine all these terms and conditions to papers, but we have to go beyond that and we have to implement all these projects within time frame. Then only we can see the improvement between two countries. And as I said that we have human resources, but we need some technical know-how from your country.
Stay tuned for stock updates after this break. Welcome back after the break. Trading at Colombo Stock Exchange ended on a negative note today. The all-share price index dropped 43.43 points to close at 6060.20, and the S&P SL20 dropped 29.23 points to close at 2945.24. The turnover was 573 million rupees and over 14 million shares were traded. Up next, our forex trade. That's all news for today. Do join us tomorrow with State of Business. Until then, take care. Good night.